Our planet still holds places so extreme that they look as if they belong to another world. Places where daytime temperatures are hot enough to scorch the land, only for the same ground to freeze just hours later. Regions where rain almost never falls, while in others, violent storms never truly stop. Even after humanity conquered the oceans, the skies, and outer space, nature still preserves extreme regions that can only be reached for short periods of time. In these places, the ground constantly trembles, steam erupts from beneath the surface, and life has evolved in unusual ways just to survive. Welcome to a journey across the most extreme natural wonders on Earth, where nature continues to reveal a raw power that humanity has never truly controlled. Kuka Hongshan Stone Forest is considered one of China's greatest canyon regions, with a massive red rock maze stretching across the dry deserts of Xinjiang. The sandstone formations constantly shift from pink to deep red, and after rare rainstorms, the cliffs can appear as if red liquid is flowing down their surfaces. The journey into this area begins on rough dirt roads, where vehicles look tiny beside thousands of towering, sharp rock pillars. Once visitors pass through narrow cracks, temperatures can suddenly change from desert heat above 122 degrees Fahrenheit to dark, cold passages with almost no sunlight. The deeper you travel, the more the 100-foot-tall canyon walls press together until only a thin strip of light remains above. Beneath the dry, cracked ground, dangerous flash floods can suddenly send muddy red water roaring through the canyon and sweep away everything in its path. Antarctica is considered the largest and driest desert on Earth, even though about 98% of its surface is covered by ice and snow. The interior of this continent receives almost no precipitation, turning it into a vast white desert with almost no liquid water. No fixed time zone truly fits Antarctica because the sky can remain bright for 6 straight months or dark for 6 straight months. The ice sheet here averages about 1.2 miles thick, forming a massive frozen shield over nearly the entire continent. From the ice shelves, giant blue icebergs can break away and drift across the White Ocean, while steel ships must cut through ice to open travel routes. These extreme conditions make Antarctica the only continent with no native reptiles or ants, while humans survive only inside isolated metal research stations through the winter. Earth has a place that looks almost like the moon called Haidu Mountain, a rare black Yardang landform deep inside China's Qaidam Basin. Unlike many Yardang terrains that are usually red, yellow, or earth brown, this area has a naturally black surface because dark gravel and stones cover the ground. Beneath that rocky layer is soil with very high saline and alkaline content and almost no surface water, making it difficult for plants and many organisms to take root and survive. This unusual color and its geological connection to volcanic activity once led to online rumors that the rocks here contained harmful radiation. The dry environment becomes even harsher when sandstorms often sweep through the area, reducing visibility to nearly zero and producing strong wind sounds between the rock gaps. Despite these harsh conditions, Haidu Mountain remains a prominent stop on the local travel route and once received more than 3,000 visitors per day during peak season. Hunza Valley lies between the three major mountain ranges of the Himalaya, Karakoram, and Hindu Kush, so it is often described as a green oasis inside Pakistan's massive high mountain system. Life here follows slopes rising from about 19,000 to 23,000 feet, where roads, villages, and terraced fields cling beside snowy cliffs. During autumn, apricot and poplar trees along the hillsides turn yellow and red at the same time, creating clear layers of color beneath peaks covered with snow throughout the year. In the middle of the valley sits the turquoise Atabad Lake, formed after a landslide in 2010, blocked the Hunza River and submerged several villages. Local people use glacial meltwater in daily life and believe the natural minerals in this water help them adapt to the high mountain environment. In winter, temperatures drop sharply, and snowstorms can isolate the valley from the outside world for several months. Varia is a geothermal area in Iceland with such strange scenery that many visitors feel as if they have stepped onto the surface of Mars. The ground is covered with yellow, orange, red, and turquoise patches created by minerals and sulfur gas constantly rising from below the surface. Across the area are thick grey mud pools that continuously boil at temperatures between 176 and 212 degrees Fahrenheit, while releasing popping sounds and spraying hot mud into the air. Unlike many geysers that erupt only at certain times, the steam vents and mud pools at Varia almost never stop boiling or releasing smoke. This constant geothermal activity fills the surrounding air with dense sulfur odor and hot steam throughout the day. The boundary between safe ground and dangerous terrain is marked only by simple ropes and wooden posts, because beneath the thin surface layer lies extremely hot mud capable of causing severe burns if the ground collapses. Karen is one of the largest and harshest inland salt lakes in China, covering more than 2,200 square miles in the dry desert region of the Qaidam Basin. Its extremely high salt concentration has turned the area into a nearly lifeless zone where fish, insects, and plants struggle to survive. After thousands of years of natural compression, the salt crust became strong enough for humans to build a highway and railway more than 20 miles long, directly across the lake's surface. Every day, freight trains weighing thousands of tons continue moving across this natural salt layer without collapsing the ground beneath them. Kahan also contains an estimated 60 billion tons of pure salt, enough to support global human use for an extremely long period of time. During the day, the bright white lake surface reflects intense ultraviolet radiation like a giant mirror and can cause corneal burns or snow blindness without proper protective eyewear. Death Valley is considered the harshest region in the United States because it holds records for extreme heat, dryness, and lowest elevation at the same time. Its lowest point is Badwater Basin, about 282 feet below sea level, once the floor of an ancient ocean, and now covered by cracked, white salt flats. This low and enclosed basin traps heat more intensely, allowing summer ground temperatures to exceed 194 degrees Fahrenheit. The air here is so dry that sweat evaporates almost immediately, causing the body to lose water quickly before people notice clear danger signs. Under these conditions, some visitors have reported that their shoe soles softened and stuck to the pavement after only a few minutes outside. Even so, once every few years, a major rainfall can wake dormant seeds beneath the dry soil and cover the valley with wildflowers. Saltstraumen in Norway holds the record as the strongest tidal current in the world, where seawater can surge through a narrow strait at speeds reaching about 23 miles per hour. This extreme flow creates giant maelstrom whirlpools with diameters up to 33 feet and depths around 16 feet, resembling rotating black holes on the ocean's surface. Between tidal reversals, the water suddenly becomes calm like glass before the entire strait violently spins in the opposite direction. The central landscape is a strait about 1.9 miles long, trapped between solid rock masses, forcing water from Salten Fjord and Skjerstad Fjord to collide during tidal exchange. Even near the Arctic Circle, where winter temperatures can become extremely low, the water at Saltstraumen almost never freezes because of the constant and powerful current. Above the strait, the curved Saltstraumen Bridge crosses directly over the swirling water, giving visitors a clear view of the massive whirlpools beneath the bridge. Grindavik is one of the most extreme towns in Iceland, where people live directly above a crack in the earth and can be erased by lava at any moment. The town stands beside the mid-Atlantic ridge, where tectonic plates pull away from each other and frequently trigger earthquakes and deep fissures across roads and streets. From the Sundhnúksgígar eruption zone, lava and red volcanic glow repeatedly light up the horizon whenever volcanic activity intensifies again. At night, lava flows approaching 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit turn the abandoned neighborhoods into a landscape resembling a post-apocalyptic wasteland. Residents of Grindavik live in constant readiness for evacuation because magma flows can suddenly shift direction and move toward the town at any time. The bitter irony is that the same underground magma system destroying Grindavik also powers the Svartsengi geothermal plant, which supplies electricity and hot water across much of the Reykjanes Peninsula. Salar de Uyuni lies in southwestern Bolivia and is the largest salt flat in the world, covering more than 4,000 square miles on the Altiplano Plateau. This area formed over thousands of years as ancient lakes repeatedly evolved, dried out, and left behind a thick salt crust across the surface. During the rainy season, a thin layer of water spreads over the salt flat and creates a highly reflective surface, making the sky and objects above appear clearly under stable atmospheric conditions. During the dry season, the water fully evaporates and the salt surface contracts into natural hexagonal patterns across the flat ground. When moving through Salar de Uyuni, observers can lose visual reference points because the space is extremely uniform and has almost no clear landmarks. Beneath the salt crust lies a major lithium reserve, estimated at 50 to 70% of the global total, while local hotels are built from salt blocks cut directly from the ground. Catatumbo lightning was once described as a giant atmospheric ozone generator, where the skies of Venezuela erupt with electrical energy for centuries. The phenomenon appears during about 160 nights each year, lasting nearly 10 hours per night, with frequencies that can exceed 280 lightning strikes per hour. At certain moments, the entire sky glows as bright as daylight, with almost no thunder, creating a surreal atmosphere above Lake Maracaibo. Depending on humidity and airborne particles, the massive electrical discharges can shift from bluish-white to purple or pale orange while tearing across dense storm clouds. One of the strangest events here is dry lightning, where thousands of branching flashes spread across the sky without a single drop of rain reaching the ground. Before radar existed, the light from Catatumbo could be seen from nearly 249 miles across the Caribbean Sea and was used by sailors as the lighthouse of Maracaibo. Lake Natron is known as the petrifying death lake because it is one of the harshest alkaline salt lakes on Earth and can preserve animal remains in hardened forms. The lake does not appear blue like normal water, but turns deep red because of salt-loving microorganisms thriving under extremely high heat. Water temperatures can sometimes reach about 140 degrees Fahrenheit, while volcanic ash from nearby mountains has gradually raised the lake's pH to around 10.5 with highly corrosive properties. Extremely high concentrations of mineral salts and sodium carbonate cause small animals that die in the lake to lose moisture rapidly before becoming calcified and hardened like fossils. This extreme environment also creates a natural protective barrier that makes it difficult for many predators to approach the lake area. Because of that, more than 2 million flamingos use this location as one of the safest and largest breeding grounds in East Africa. Changbaishan volcano is often compared to a time bomb wrapped in ice, where a volcano, a frozen lake, and a geopolitical border exist on the same extreme summit. The border between China and North Korea cuts across the Tianqi Lake area, turning this crater into a natural wonder divided by politics. Set inside the massive volcanic crater, Tianqi Lake reaches about 1,260 feet deep and holds about 2 billion cubic meters of water above the magma system. In winter, temperatures on the summit can fall to minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit, causing the lake surface to freeze thickly for more than half the year. On the barren summit zone, small plants such as Changbai poppies can still grow in nutrient-poor volcanic ash. Since 2002, small earthquakes and ground swelling have kept scientists monitoring the possible reactivation risk of this volcano. Lake Namtso is known as the ocean on the roof of the world because it is one of the highest large saltwater lakes on Earth, sitting at about 15,480 feet on the Tibetan Plateau. At this elevation, oxygen levels fall to less than 60% of those at sea level. So even walking or carrying luggage can cause many people to experience altitude sickness. The cold conditions make the lake environment harsher in winter, when temperatures drop sharply and nearly 770 square miles of water become locked beneath thick ice. In spring, this ice layer cracks apart and collides in large sheets, creating powerful echoing sounds across the lake's surface. Life around Namtso depends heavily on yaks, animals with thick coats and strong adaptation to snowy terrain. About once every 12 years, tens of thousands of pilgrims walk around the lake for many weeks to complete a prayer ritual in this harsh plateau environment. Welcome to Kilauea, one of the most continuously active volcanoes in the world, which once maintained non-stop eruptions for 35 straight years. Thick lava flows with temperatures above 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit slowly move down the slopes, crushing asphalt roads and destroying structures in their path. The sky around the crater often fills with a phenomenon called Pele's hair, created when wind stretches molten lava into thin, sharp strands of volcanic glass floating through the air. These lava flows were destructive enough to swallow more than 700 homes and completely evaporate a large freshwater lake within only a few hours. When the glowing lava pours into the cold ocean, massive white steam columns immediately rise into the sky, but they contain dangerous acid and volcanic glass particles. The constant lava entering the sea and turning into rock has made Hawaii one of the few places in the United States that continues gaining natural land area over time. Lop Nur is known as China's Sea of Death because it lies within one of the harshest desert regions on the Eurasian continent. Potential evaporation here is about 300 times higher than annual rainfall, causing the ancient lake that once existed to disappear gradually and leave behind huge salt flats. From satellite images, the core area of Lop Nur appears with large concentric rings that form a very clear shape resembling a human ear. Its surface is not smooth sand, but a hard, rough and sharp salt crust that can tear the tires of heavy off-road vehicles. From 1964 to 1996, China conducted 45 nuclear tests in this isolated area. In summer, air temperatures exceed 104 degrees Fahrenheit, and the ground can reach about 158 degrees Fahrenheit. Yet wild Bactrian camels still survive by adapting to saline water sources. The Amazon River has the largest water flow in the world and carries about 20% of all fresh water from Earth's surface into the oceans. This enormous volume of water allows the Amazon to hold more water than the next 7 largest rivers combined and creates the largest drainage system on the planet. During the rainy season, water levels can rise about 49 feet and expand the width of the river to nearly 31 miles, turning millions of square miles of rainforest into a massive flooded region. This extreme seasonal change makes the Amazon the only major river in the world without a single bridge crossing its main channel. Near the river mouth, the force of the Amazon collides with Atlantic Ocean tides and creates walls of water about 13 feet high that surge far inland. Beneath the muddy water is an ecosystem known for electric eels capable of producing 860 volts, schools of piranhas, and giant anacondas hiding in the mud below. Skeleton Coast is one of the most original definitions of a coastline that almost rejects human survival. Stretching for about 311 miles, this area contains thousands of rusting steel shipwrecks broken by waves, washed ashore, and slowly covered by desert sand. Across the white beaches, whale bones, seal bones, and human remains once carried by the coast create a rare coastal landscape. This region sits where the ancient Namib Desert directly meets the cold and violent waters of the Atlantic Ocean. Large dunes can move up to about 49 feet each year, repeatedly burying old wrecks and exposing other remains. The southern part of the coastline also includes the Cherabit, where diamond deposits and strict control turn Skeleton Coast into a natural boundary that is almost impossible to access. Mount Sapu is considered the king of the sacred mountains of northern Tibet, and is famous for having one of the most perfectly shaped snow pyramid peaks in the world. The sharp mountain faces rising more than 21,500 feet create an almost symmetrical structure above the cold plateau sky. From these peaks, massive glaciers fall directly into freshwater lakes below, creating scenes similar to Antarctic icebergs usually seen only in polar regions. At this elevation, oxygen levels in the air are reduced to about half of normal conditions, causing many visitors to experience altitude sickness after only a short amount of physical effort. In contrast, local yaks have adapted to the high mountain environment through enlarged lungs and stronger hearts that allow them to move easily across steep, rocky terrain. To reach Sapu, travelers must cross steep off-road paths and freezing glacial streams, making the journey a challenge before the snow peak appears. If you think hell exists only in legends, then step toward the Darvaza gas crater, where the ground has been torn open into a giant fire pit, burning for more than 50 years. This area was once flat land until 1971, when a Soviet drilling rig collapsed the surface and created a crater nearly the size of a football field. To prevent toxic methane gas from spreading into the environment, scientists ignited the crater with the expectation that the fire would burn out within a few weeks. Instead, the flames continued burning violently for decades and now produce waves of intense heat that force many visitors to step back after only a short time. At night, the orange glow rising from the crater lights up the desert sky and can still be seen from many miles away. Despite repeated plans involving concrete sealing, directional drilling, and attempts to block the gas source, the Darvaza crater continues burning today. Explore the loneliest and driest place on the planet, the heart of the Eurasian continent, the point farthest from every ocean on Earth, where life must fight for every drop of water to survive. In the local language, Taklamakan carries the meaning whoever enters should not expect to return, because sand and wind can quickly erase all human traces. About 85% of the desert is made of constantly shifting dunes that change shape after major storms and once helped bury the ancient kingdom of Lula from history. The environment also experiences extreme temperature contrasts, with summer sand reaching nearly 158 degrees Fahrenheit, while winter temperatures can fall to about -4 degrees Fahrenheit. Along the desert edges grow desert poplar trees with twisted trunks, famous for surviving hundreds of years in severe dry conditions. Humans have built a highway more than 310 miles long through the core of Taklamakan, where isolated workers operate water systems year-round to maintain millions of roadside trees against the advancing sand. Do not let the picturesque beauty of the Danakil Depression deceive you, because this place is a giant acid trap and one of the hottest regions humans have ever entered. The area is considered the hottest place on Earth by average yearly temperature, with daytime heat often exceeding 122 degrees Fahrenheit and nighttime temperatures rarely dropping below 86 degrees Fahrenheit. Because of the mixture of dense chemicals, the ground contains bubbling pools in bright green and glowing yellow colors that look like luminous liquids. In many spots, water rises naturally from underground, boils violently, and releases thick steam even though there is no fire source nearby. These colorful pools are extremely salty and strongly acidic, enough to damage the rubber under shoe soles after long contact. Despite chemical risks, skin-burning heat, and difficult access routes, Danakil still attracts people who want to approach one of Earth's harshest natural environments. Known as the most spectacular scar on Earth, Dushanzi is the starting point of the Duku Highway, one of the most dangerous mountain roads in China. The entire area formed over millions of years as a dark mud river continuously eroded and cut through layers of rock and soil, creating a massive canyon system. Along the cliffs stand countless sharp clay pillars that make the landscape resemble a giant stone fortress with almost no signs of life. The canyon floor appears gray and barren, with almost no vegetation, because the terrain is extremely dry and filled with sharp rock edges that make survival difficult. Crossing above the canyon is a transparent glass bridge that allows visitors to look directly down into depths reaching hundreds of feet below. The area is also famous for suspended cable cycling high above the canyon, turning Dushanzi into an extreme challenge destination for adventure travelers. The Lut Desert in Iran holds one of the most extreme heat records on Earth, with NASA satellites once recording a surface temperature of 159 degrees Fahrenheit. This is not a poetic golden sand desert, but a burning plateau where extreme ground heat can quickly damage rubber shoe soles. The hottest zone is a surface of about 185 square miles, covered with black volcanic rock that strongly absorbs heat. In the middle of the desert lies the Kalut system, where thousands of mud and sand towers, rising up to hundreds of feet, have been eroded by wind into shapes resembling an abandoned city. From June to October, the Sistan wind blows for about 120 days, carrying sand across the region like a large-scale natural abrasion process. Dasht-e-Lut is Iran's first UNESCO-recognized Natural World Heritage Site, and also a major challenge for commercial expedition teams that dare to enter its extreme heat core. Dukono is a complex volcanic system known for erupting almost continuously for more than 90 years and is considered one of the most persistent active volcanoes on Earth. Since 1933, the volcano has had almost no dormant phase as it keeps releasing ash, gas, and pressure from deep underground. Near the crater, high-pressure gas produces violent roaring sounds with an intensity similar to standing behind a jet engine preparing for takeoff. About every 10 to 20 minutes, explosions launch glowing red rocks the size of a car into the air above gray ash and burned vegetation. The crater continuously releases dense sulfur dioxide gas, so anyone approaching the core zone must use a specialized protective respirator. Although villages around the volcano are often covered by ash, residents still use this mineral-rich layer to improve agricultural soil. Cave of the Crystals is a rare underground wonder that has been sealed again beneath the ground, submerged in dark hot water and almost closed off from the entire human world. Located about 984 feet below the Nika mine in Mexico, this cave contains giant gypsum crystals reaching up to 39 feet in length and crossing through the chamber. The environment inside reaches about 136 degrees Fahrenheit, with humidity near saturation, causing humans to die quickly without specialized cooling suits. This landscape formed when sulfate-rich hot water was continuously heated by a deep magma chamber for roughly 500,000 years. The cave floor has no flat pathway because it is covered with chaotic crystal blocks growing across one another. Inside tiny water bubbles trapped within the crystal cores, scientists found ancient microorganisms isolated for about 50,000 years, but still capable of becoming active again. Kawah Ijen in Indonesia contains one of the largest natural sulfuric acid lakes on Earth, set inside a volcanic crater about 0.6 miles wide. This volcano constantly releases dense sulfur dioxide gas, which can damage the respiratory system and eyes if people enter without a gas mask. The turquoise color of the acid lake contrasts sharply with the gray, steep, and jagged rock walls around the crater. The lake is enclosed by a rough volcanic rim shaped by ancient eruptions. The bright yellow crystallized sulfur is called devil's gold by local people because extraction takes place in a toxic environment. This is one of the last places where sulfur is still mined entirely by human labor, as miners carry heavy sulfur blocks across steep rock walls inside an active volcano. Boiling Lake in Dominica is one of the few places on Earth where magma activity is almost directly exposed at the surface. Hidden inside dense tropical rainforest, this lake, about 197 feet wide, boils violently like a giant pressure cooker within a volcanic system. Temperatures around the edge remain between 180 and 198 degrees Fahrenheit, while the strongly boiling center is too dangerous for scientists to measure accurately. The lake is actually a flooded fumarole, working as a pressure release valve connected directly to the hot magma system deep beneath Dominica. At certain times, the water can drain completely within only a few days, exposing black mud and toxic gas vents before groundwater returns and boils the lake again. Around the edge of the lake, there are no guardrails or protected walkways, while the hot, slippery, and unstable ground makes this one of the most dangerous geothermal landscapes in Dominica. Our planet has always operated in different ways, where the laws of nature do not always remain within the limits of human endurance. In some places, temperatures can become seriously dangerous within a very short time, while in others, life continues to exist under conditions that seem almost incompatible with ordinary biology. From lakes with unusual chemical compositions to vast deserts where signs of life are reduced to an absolute minimum. As we move deeper into these regions, the gap between what can be observed and the true level of risk becomes increasingly clear. These are not simply natural landforms. These are extreme wonders, where Earth reveals its most extreme environmental states and clearly defines the limits of human survival. Angel Falls lies deep inside Venezuela's Canaima National Park, and it is the tallest uninterrupted waterfall in the world, with a total height of 3,212 feet and a main free fall of 2,648 feet. But the extremity of this place is not defined by height alone. Angel Falls has no road leading to it, so to reach it, people must fly in small aircraft through cloud-filled canyons, and then continue for hours by boat up the Churun River. The waterfall carries the name of American pilot Jimmy Angel, the man who brought it before the outside world. In 1937, he tried to land his Flamingo aircraft on top of Uyan Tepui in search of gold, but the plane sank into marshy ground and was completely ruined. After that, Angel, his wife, and 2 companions had to walk for 11 days through rainforest, hunger, and steep terrain to make their way down. The aircraft remained on the mountaintop for 33 years as a trace of human failure before nature. Rio Tinto does not look like an ordinary river, but more like a dark red band of liquid where the chemical environment is so harsh that many forms of life can barely survive. Its extremity comes from its very high acidity, close to the acid in the human stomach, or concentrated lemon juice, strong enough to cause stinging and burning if skin stays in contact for too long. Because of those conditions, there are almost no fish and very little ordinary aquatic life that can survive in this water. So people come here only to observe, and no one enters the river to swim or wade through it. The distinctive red color of Rio Tinto is also not a simple visual effect, but the trace of an iron-rich and acidic environment that has existed for a very long time. That almost extraterrestrial harshness is exactly why NASA and the European Space Agency chose this place as a real-world testing ground for robots and life detection equipment before sending them to Mars. In the middle of a desert basin, the Dead Sea appears like a crystal graveyard, filled with deadly paradoxes. Here, the harshness is compressed into blue water, carrying such an extreme concentration of salt and minerals that it becomes a kind of toxic solution. You experience the helpless feeling of being unable to sink, as your body floats like a cork. But if you are accidentally flipped face down, your legs pushed upward into the air can make turning back to breathe feel hopeless. Just one accidental swallow of the water is enough to burn the esophagus and trigger immediate heart failure. Yet even within that brutality, the human presence still endures with remarkable persistence. Today, despite the risks of sinkholes and dangerous terrain, communities still build modern resorts here and use the mineral-rich mud for healing. If there is any place on Earth that comes close to the surface of Mars or a true corner of hell, it is the danger-filled Danakil Desert. At Dalol, you may be stunned by the brilliant turquoise pools, but in reality, they are boiling sulfuric acid and liquid iron ready to dissolve the shoes of anyone who takes a wrong step. Not far away, nearby Erta Al volcano holds a continuously active lava lake, creating roaring sounds and a red glow that never fades in the darkness of night. To reach it, explorers must walk across fields of basalt sharp as razors in an atmosphere thick with toxic gas that burns the chest. Despite this unreal environment, the Afar people have continued living here for centuries, where miners work for 12 straight hours under scorching heat with only a little dry bread to keep themselves alive. Mosinram receives so much rain that daily life no longer revolves around sunshine and wind, but around how people resist water and moisture for months at a time. Sitting in the Khasi Hills in northeastern India, this small village is recognized by Guinness as the place with the highest average annual rainfall on Earth. During the rainy season, the sun nearly disappears, so clothes cannot be dried outside and instead must be hung over charcoal stoves or wood fires, burning softly inside the house to dry little by little. Moisture creeps into every corner, causing wood to rot quickly, while books, documents, and leather goods can be ruined by mold after only a few days if they are not sealed tightly. Floods also turn gentle streams into violent currents that wash away or rot almost every bridge made of wood or bamboo. To survive here, local people guide and weave the roots of rubber fig trees across streams for 10 to 15 years, creating living bridges that become stronger the wetter they get. Vatnajökull is where breathtaking beauty collides with the brutality of nature. Do not let the crystal blue color deceive you, because stepping into the glacier feels like entering the stomach of a living monster. Just a very small change in temperature is enough to crack the ice ceiling, and then an ice mass weighing millions of tons can come crashing down after a deep, dull sound that makes the ground shake. There have been tourist groups that had barely left a photo spot before that exact place collapsed instantly into shattered ice. But the greatest threat still lies beneath the glacier, where volcanic heat silently melts water and creates Jökulhlaup glacial floods. One veteran guide said that if you suddenly smell a strong sulfur odor and see the rocks under your feet begin to dance, you have only a few short minutes to race death before an entire wide area is wiped out. Vorkuta lies on the eastern edge of Europe and is often described as the coldest and most isolated city on the continent. The abandoned Soviet-era apartment blocks here are not just decaying, but have been completely taken over by winter as ice pushes through broken windows, hardens from ceiling to floor, and turns each apartment into a twisted, frozen cave. Winter in Vorkuta is so severe that a car parked in the wrong place without any wind protection can be buried by a snowstorm in just one night and almost vanish from sight. But the cold is not the only layer of cruelty here. Vorkuta is even more terrifying because of its past, as this city was established as a Stalin-era labor camp, where tens of thousands of prisoners were forced to mine coal for 12 to 16 hours a day in hunger and freezing conditions. The Vorkuta uprising in 1953 later ended in bloodshed when the military opened fire on prisoners, killing hundreds of people. As jobs disappeared and heating costs became too expensive, some people were willing to give away or sell an apartment for no more than the price of a loaf of bread just to escape this city. Catatumbo lightning is a place where night almost stops existing because the sky above Lake Maracaibo can erupt non-stop like a gigantic natural flashing machine. This phenomenon appears on average from 140 to 160 nights each year, sometimes reaching 300 nights, with each storm lasting about 10 hours and the strike rate climbing to 280 bolts in a single hour, enough for this place to hold the Guinness World Record for the highest lightning density on Earth. For newcomers, trying to sleep under white, blue, and purple light flickering on and off for hours can easily throw the body into exhaustion, insomnia, and disorientation. The people who face it most directly are the residents of floating villages like Congo Mirador and the fishermen, working across the broad, exposed lake with almost nowhere to hide. There have been stories of boats set on fire by lightning or fishermen killed in an instant because the water makes the area around each strike extremely dangerous. In Atacama, nature is not only harsh, but seems to actively erase every trace of life. For more than 400 years, this central region has not received a single drop of rain, turning the air into a machine that strips every bit of moisture from each breath. People here are not simply living, but fighting a survival battle every second. This extremity pushes the miners searching for white gold into desperation, forcing them to use even urine to moisten the earth and stone, or share a tiny basin of water among dozens of people. More terrifying still, this place even refuses the decay of death. Because the air is so dry, remain preserved intact, and some are even 2,000 years older than the mummies of Egypt. Without any chemicals, this absolute dryness has locked time itself in place, turning the desert into a freezer made of sand, where every trace of life and death is sealed in a terrifying silence. Lake Natron looks like an alien landscape, glowing in deep red and pink across a body of water where most living creatures can barely survive. That color does not come from pollution, but from salt-loving microorganisms that thrive in water with extremely high salinity and alkalinity, creating a lake surface that is both visually striking and deeply threatening. The grim reputation of this place grew even stronger after Nick Brandt's photographs showed dead birds and small animals coated in alkaline salt, which slowed decomposition and preserved their final poses like calcified statues. In 2007, a documentary crew crashed a helicopter into the lake, and survivors later said the water entering open wounds felt like acid being thrown onto their skin until local Maasai people rescued them. For humans, this is a body of water that is almost impossible to endure directly. But for lesser flamingos, it becomes a breeding fortress that predators can barely cross. The salt islands in the middle of the lake create safe nesting grounds, while the hardened skin on their legs allows these birds to stand in water that many other creatures cannot even touch. The Valley of Death in Kamchatka is a dazzling trap, but one of the most brutal places imaginable. Do not let the bright yellow sulfur fields or the crystal-like streams deceive you, because this place is in fact a giant natural gas chamber. The killer here is completely invisible, a heavy layer of volcanic gas that does not drift away, but sinks downward and forms a murderous fog only about 1 foot high that clings to the ground. Researchers who have entered this place have seen with their own eyes the bodies of birds and many other animals lying dead across the valley. Even more horrifying, most of those bodies do not decompose normally because the toxic gas kills the bacteria responsible for decay and turns the valley into something like a place of mummification. The greatest tragedy came in the 1950s, when many people driven by curiosity entered this place and never returned. Nearly 100 lives were lost here, turning this valley into a graveyard, glowing with volcanic color, yet also a suffocating trap with no escape. Bishop Rock is the kind of place that makes it hard to believe humans still tried to build an entire lighthouse in the middle of the ocean on a rock with barely enough room to stand. This rock lies in the Atlantic Ocean and is recognized by Guinness as the world's smallest island, with a man-made structure almost just large enough to support a granite tower rising 161 feet high. Years for brave workers to complete the current stone tower while clinging to the site in the middle of violent waves. Even after being built from enormous granite blocks and reinforced again later, this place has never truly been calm. Lighthouse keepers said that whenever storms arrived, they could feel the entire tower shaking after each earth-shaking blow from the sea. Can you imagine a world where the moment your breath leaves your mouth, it instantly freezes solid and crackles apart right beside your ears? At Oymyakon, the cold drops to -58 degrees Fahrenheit, turning life into a suffocating fight for survival. The moment people step outside, moisture on their eyelashes and hair freezes at once, making them look like real-life Santa Clauses. To survive outdoors at the harshest time of year, people have to wear more than 20 layers of clothing, weighing nearly 31 pounds, just to stop their bodies from losing heat too quickly. The cold here also controls machines, forcing cars to run all day and all night so the oil does not freeze, turning engine noise into the familiar sound of the entire village. Even death becomes a struggle. The ground is harder than concrete, so people keep fierce fires burning for 3 full days and nights to thaw each patch of earth before a grave can be dug. In Santa Cruz del Islote, the harshness begins with its suffocating size itself. Known as the most crowded island on Earth, this place compresses more than 1,200 people into an area no larger than 2 soccer fields, creating one of the most suffocating population densities in the world, far beyond many major cities like New York or Hong Kong. Here, land is so precious that even death has no place to stay, because the island has no cemetery. So whenever someone dies, the whole community must row them to another island for burial. The residents do not only lack land, but also struggle with thirst in the middle of the sea because there are no wells or streams. They have to treasure every drop of liquid gold from the sky. And whenever dark clouds gather, the whole island rushes out with buckets and basins to catch its supply of life. Yet the strangest part is that within that compressed space, the island still does not sink into silence or despair. Large speakers still blast reggaeton all day long, turning a place of scarcity into an open-air party where laughter still finds room among every hardship. Can you believe that in the hottest place on Earth, like the Sahara, the thing that can kill you fastest is sometimes not the skin-searing heat, but the freezing cold that arrives in the middle of the night. With the sand surface in daylight soaring to 176 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to fry an egg, the air feels like a giant oven that instantly pulls every drop of sweat from your body. But when the sun goes down, the sand cannot hold its heat, causing the temperature to plunge to about 21 degrees Fahrenheit and throwing the body into a brutal thermal shock from burning heat to freezing cold. The story of athlete Mauro Prosperi stands as a harsh example when he was lost for 9 days in a sandstorm and had to drink his own urine and eat raw bat meat just to keep breathing. Even when he finally turned to death in despair, his blood could not flow because his body had already dried out completely like a mummy in the middle of the desert. In contrast to that cruelty, the Tuareg people still survive in remarkable ways by reading the desert like a living being in order to find hidden underground water sources. Spotted Lake looks like a surface from another planet, but behind those strange colored spots lies a land that is both harsh and sacred. The lake lies near Osoyoos, an area often considered the only desert region in Canada, where summer temperatures sometimes rise above 104 degrees Fahrenheit. And the water evaporates so quickly that within just a few weeks, the lake changes form and leaves behind a hard mineral crust, heated like fired clay. During the First World War, people extracted about 1 ton of minerals a day from this place to produce ammunition, turning labor among salt dust, chemicals, and dry heat into work that wore down the human body. But for the Syilx people, the power of the lake does not lie in its minerals, but in its ability to heal. They believe that each pool carries its own distinct property, and one legend says that wounded warriors were once brought into the lake so their injuries could recover faster. In Hawaii, the spectacle of lava meets the ocean is not a quiet picture, but the most brutal geological forge on Earth. When molten rock at 2012 degrees Fahrenheit crashes straight into the ocean, the Earth is not only growing larger, but also screaming. Right at the contact zone, seawater can rise close to the boiling point, enough to kill fish and turn the surface into a danger zone, even for boats standing far away. But the more terrifying part lies in the explosions caused when seawater gets trapped inside the lava flow and then flashes into steam, like a natural pressure bomb. When that happens, red-hot rocks as large as a refrigerator can be blasted into the air and become powerful enough to punch through tourist boats in the distance. Between thick acid smoke and razor-sharp glass dust embedding itself in the lungs, the boundary between life and death becomes thinner than ever. The Lut Desert is not just a wild land, but truly a brutal furnace where the sun can directly cook alive every form of life. With a record surface temperature reaching 160 degrees Fahrenheit, even bacteria struggle to survive, turning this place into the harshest sterile land on Earth. Explorers say that without specialized boots, rubber soles can soften and stick to the ground like melted chewing gum. The wind in Lut brings no relief, but blasts like a giant hairdryer straight into the face, draining every drop of water from the body. The violent sandstorms here can even strip car paint and scratch windshields after just one furious sweep. Chimborazo is the mountain that makes the very definition of the highest peak in the world far less simple, because if measured from the center of the Earth, it reaches farther than Everest. But what makes this place terrifying is not just the number, but the way it wears down the human body through altitude, thin air, sharp rock, and dense fog. In 1802, Alexander von Humboldt attempted to conquer this mountain and climbed to more than 19,000 feet, a staggering record for that time while suffering from bleeding gums and eyes, dizziness, nausea, and a body that was nearly drained of all strength. Yet for many centuries, local people still climbed the glaciers of Chimborazo to cut ice and carry it down to sell. They had only donkeys, crude axes, and the endurance to face skin-cutting cold in order to harvest a purity of ice that no machine could create. If you are looking for a place to disappear from debt or test the absolute limit of human loneliness, then Tristan da Cunha stands at the top of the list. There is no airport on the island, so the only way to arrive or leave is by ship from Cape Town on a journey of nearly 6 days across the violent waters of the Atlantic Ocean. Only about 8 to 10 ships visit each year, so if you miss one, you may be stranded there for months more, even if you need modern medical care. Yet the strangest proof of the islanders' stubborn spirit came when the volcano erupted in 1961. Because even after being evacuated to prosperous England, the entire population was overwhelmed by the noise and voted to return to the harsh island. They chose ash and extreme isolation over merging into modern society, tying their lives instead to a land the world had almost forgotten. In Antarctica, there is a place that looks more like an abandoned planet than part of the frozen world, and that place is the Antarctic dry valleys. Unlike the familiar image of a continent covered in endless white, this valley region is almost completely free of ice, and NASA once used it to test equipment before sending it to Mars. What makes this place so strange is its near absolute dryness, because some areas are believed to have received no rain or snow for about 2 million years, driving humidity close to zero and almost erasing life itself. When the wind stops, there are no birds, no leaves, and no background sound of any kind, and that silence becomes so complete that many people begin to hear their own heartbeat, the blood moving in their ears, and even the sound of their joints. In the middle of that lifeless stillness, blood spills out from Taylor Glacier like a stream of dark red blood between the ice and stone. The Mariana Trench is a place where the ocean no longer feels like water, but like an invisible wall that can crush anything in an instant. Sending a human down into this abyss is considered many times more difficult and dangerous than traveling to the moon. At its deepest point, the pressure of the water is so extreme that it is equal to 50 giant jet airplanes pressing down on a single human body at the same time. Yet in that pressure hell, the translucent snailfish, clear as crystal, still glides through the darkness like an aristocratic ghost, defying every law of physics. James Cameron became the first person to make a solo expedition to the bottom of the Mariana Trench, describing the seafloor as a barren, lunar desert with no obvious sign of life anywhere in sight. Chernobyl is the place where a mistake lasting only a few seconds turned an entire region into a brutal test of the limits of survival. Located in northern Ukraine, this area was once a symbol of Soviet nuclear power until April 26, 1986, when reactor number 4 exploded and shattered all order. In the early period after the disaster, standing near the core for around 300 seconds was enough to take a life, and even today, radiation can still damage the electronic systems of robots entering the most dangerous zones. The explosion blasted a massive cloud of radioactive material into the atmosphere, with a force often described as 400 times greater than the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. The pine forest around the plant turned red-brown like rust, leaving behind a physical scar of land burned from within. The central area will need at least 20,000 more years before it is truly safe for humans. Mongkok is the embodiment of brutal contradiction, an urban monster that squeezes the breath out of human life. Beneath the glamorous skyscrapers, where bright LED lights glow and the scent of luxury perfume hangs in the air, dark basement entrances lead down to coffin homes measuring barely 22 square feet. Some elderly residents have died inside those cramped units, and neighbors only discovered it weeks later because of the smell of decay. There, the expensive perfume trailing from a woman stepping into a luxury car collides violently with the stench of garbage and reused frying oil rising from the dark alleys. The harshness is heard in the shrill sound of arguments, mixing with the constant rattling hum of old air conditioners, creating a soundtrack of sensory torment 24/7. When night falls and the neon lights steal the sky, Mongkok turns into a pressure cooker caught between the law and the hidden purges of the underworld. Mongkok is dazzling yet suffocating, a shopping paradise built on top of a raw and painful reality. Death Valley holds 3 of the most frightening records in North America at once: the hottest, the driest, and the lowest, turning the entire region into a brutal test of human endurance. In summer, ground temperatures here can rise above 194 degrees Fahrenheit, enough for many visitors to report that the soles of their sneakers softened and stuck to the asphalt just minutes after stepping out of the car. The air's dangerous in a less obvious way because it is so dry that sweat evaporates almost instantly, causing the body to lose water rapidly before a person even realizes they are wet or exhausted. The true power of this place became clear in the tragedy of 1996, when a German family of 4 drove off the main route and became trapped in soft sand in the middle of July. In a land with no phone signal, no shade, and air temperatures near 122 degrees Fahrenheit, they were forced to walk for help but could not survive. It was not until 13 years later that their remains were discovered by hikers. Cherrapunji is famous for such extreme rainfall that the entire village lives as if it is constantly enduring an attack from the sky. As the wettest place on Earth, this land has no real meaning of dryness, because mold and rust are ready to consume everything from leather to metal in what feels like an instant. Yet in a harsh paradox, despite receiving record-breaking rainfall, the people here still face severe shortages of daily water whenever the brutal dry season arrives. Women have to wake before dawn and walk for miles down into deep valleys just to gather every precious drop of water and carry it back home for their families. To survive, the Khasi people chose to grow living root bridges instead of building with concrete or steel, which can easily be destroyed by violent floods. These resilient root structures grow stronger the wetter they become, turning into a powerful symbol of human endurance against the raging force of wild nature. If you want to come face to face with the most spine-chilling things imaginable, then Tangmi Cave is a place you cannot ignore. To reach it, you must endure an extreme approach along a rock ledge only half a foot wide, where a vertical cliff confronts a bottomless drop toward the river below, thin as a silver thread. Ancient people achieved what feels impossible when they hauled massive solid logs up into high rock cavities, creating the eerie image of boats anchored in mid-air. Inside the decaying wood, you are met by ancient skulls with deep, hollow eye sockets and rows of pale teeth lying exposed against layers of pitch-black debris. The harshness also lives in the spiritual curse surrounding this place, because those who trespass and take bones or burial objects are said to meet tragic endings, from madness to strange accidents right at the cave entrance. Qingde Mountain is a lonely stone fortress in the sky, home to a cluster of ancient stone buildings standing defiantly on a perilous summit. The path to the top feels like an ordeal, with narrow stone steps that are steep and pressed against the cliff edge, making every step come with a sense of lost balance. The strangest feature is the ancient stone complex itself, built from skillfully stacked rock blocks without a single drop of mortar, yet still standing firm through centuries of storms. The extremity also comes from violent winds, compressed through narrow gaps, strong enough to throw off anyone who does not drop low and cling in time. Despite all of that, reclusive Taoist ascetics still remain there without electricity and without running water, treating the howling wind and thunder itself as an ultimate fire to forge their spirit. Palmerston is a place where isolation is no longer just a feeling, but the entire structure of everyday life. The island has no airport and no regular passenger ship route, so the only usual way to reach it is by joining a cargo vessel rocking on the ocean for more than a week from the nearest mainland. Money has almost lost all meaning here because there is no market, no store, and people sustain life by directly exchanging fish, coconuts, and whatever they produce with their own hands. Any visitor who drifts into Palmerston is not treated as an outsider because the island chief arranges for a local family to take them in, feed them, house them, and care for them like a relative returning after a very long time away. But behind that welcoming rhythm of life lies a very clear fragility, because the highest point of the island rises only a few feet above sea level. When a superstorm sweeps through, residents do not only battle strong winds and heavy waves, but also the possibility that the entire island could be swallowed by the sea in a single assault. Miyakojima is the gas mask island, a place that holds one of the most extreme records of human survival under constant volcanic toxic gas exposure across many decades. In the year 2000, the volcano awoke in a terrifying fury, releasing a massive volume of toxic gas that blanketed the entire island and forced 4,000 residents to flee, leaving behind their homes and memories through 5 years of lockdown. When they returned, The island looked like a dead planet after the end of the world, where every resident was required to wear a gas mask 24 hours a day whenever stepping outside, just to stay alive. The extremity was not limited to the air alone, but also appeared in acid rain, strong enough to corrode almost everything. Newly purchased cars could rust and decay within just a few months, while iron fences were eaten away until they were full of holes. Even the great trees were boiled alive from the inside, turning into forests of dry white skeletons standing in silence beneath a sky filled with deadly sulfur. Slab City is known as the last free place in America because of a way of life that stands completely outside ordinary social rules. But in reality, this is a true furnace in the middle of the Sonoran Desert, where extreme heat reaches 122 degrees Fahrenheit, while residents have no power grid and must endure the heat inside suffocating trailers or under makeshift shelters they build themselves. In this anarchic world, every conflict is settled by a violent law of the jungle and by gunshots that can erupt without warning in the middle of the night. Residents must survive inside deadly homes built from scrap and discarded waste, where fire can destroy everything in an instant, with no fire trucks coming to help. Most frightening of all is the water used for washing from the Coachella Canal, a toxic flow soaked with pesticide residue and agricultural chemicals from nearby farms. Without sewer systems and with dark, broken sanitation, life here becomes a brutal cycle of pollution, where people trade their lives for absolute freedom. You may have heard of the wonders of the world, but never wonders like these. Places where color, shape, and structure seem to break every law of nature. From arid deserts, where life is nearly absent, to rainforests, where humidity remains constantly saturated. From lands that change color through layers of mineral deposits, to vast white salt flats that reflect light like a mirror. From giant creatures that shape entire marine ecosystems, to invisible life forms that support the foundation of life itself. These are not just travel destinations. These are the strangest and most spectacular secrets on Earth. The Dead Sea is recognized as the lowest point on the planet at more than 1,400 feet below sea level. This completely isolated basin functions like a massive pressure cooker with extreme salt saturation, reaching lethal levels. Instead of soft sand, the shoreline is jagged with mushroom-shaped salt crystals and razor-sharp salt reefs that can easily slice through anything they encounter. With a toxic salt concentration 10 times higher than the ocean, the osmotic pressure instantly dehydrates any living creature, turning a stray fish into a mummified corpse within mere minutes. One tourist nearly died after accidentally swallowing a mouthful of this thick brine, which caused horrific burns to his lungs and completely paralyzed his internal organs. The brutality is further proven as the water level recedes by over 3 feet every year, triggering thousands of massive sinkholes that open up abruptly like gaping wounds across the landscape. Whitehaven is repeatedly ranked as the most beautiful beach on Earth, yet its permanent population remains 0%. No one, not even the most experienced indigenous groups, has chosen to settle on this shoreline stretching about 4 miles, because the lack of fresh water means thirst would crush them long before hunger. Beneath the crystal clear water drift nearly invisible Irukandji jellyfish, measuring only about half an inch, but carrying venom reported to be about 100 times stronger than cobra venom. When strong winds sweep across sand made almost entirely of quartz, the fine silica grains rise into the air like microscopic glass, capable of destroying survival equipment and damaging human lungs. Despite these lethal hazards, modern visitors cling to the edge of the island only a few hours each day, extracting millions of dollars from tourism before quickly retreating back to the mainland. Ironically, the same deadly white sand reflects heat so efficiently that it stays cool even under about 104 degrees Fahrenheit, and similar ultra-pure silica was used in the reflective glass of space telescopes. Known as Chocolate Falls, Grand Falls is famous for its thick, reddish-brown flow, carrying the raw power of nature across the Arizona desert landscape. For most of the year, the site appears as a dry cliff, but during flood season, it transforms into a massive mud waterfall carrying millions of cubic yards of red sediment. What pours over the edge is not clear water, but a heavy mixture of mud rocks and debris, with enough force to crush bones and bury any living creature caught beneath it. Even when the sky above remains clear, storms dozens of miles upstream can suddenly send a giant wall of mud racing through the canyon within seconds. The harsh paradox is that this enormous flow cannot become a water source because the dense sediment and heavy metals make the liquid impossible to purify. Because of repeated dangers and environmental damage, the Navajo Nation closed Grand Falls to visitors in 2023, leaving the desert waterfall isolated once again. Living and navigating through the Corinth Canal in Greece is a risky decision because this artificial waterway cuts a narrow wound into the land where towering rock walls constantly threaten to collapse. The obsession with slicing through this isthmus began in ancient times, and in 67 AD, the Roman Emperor Nero forced about 6,000 prisoners to dig the canal by hand, leaving many dead from exhaustion and falling rock before the project stalled for centuries. It passed through sedimentary rock and an active fault zone, which means the steep walls frequently collapse despite massive retaining structures. During World War II, retreating German forces destroyed sections of the canal walls and pushed more than 130 train cars and several locomotives into the channel, turning the bottom into a tangled barrier of steel and explosives. Today, ships passing through the canal move so close to the rock walls that passengers can almost reach out and touch the cliff faces rising on both sides. Above the narrow gorge, nearly 260 feet deep, a bridge spans the canal and has become a famous bungee jumping site where thrill seekers leap into a tight corridor of swirling wind between the towering cliffs. The Eye of the Earth in Croatia is the deepest flooded karst sinkhole in the Balkan region, whose bottom has never been reached. The most experienced cave divers have reached only about 509 feet before stopping, because the dark passages below continue into an unexplored underground network. Water emerging from the depths stays between about 39 and 46 degrees Fahrenheit, even when summer air temperatures above ground exceed 104 degrees Fahrenheit, which can cause severe cold shock within minutes of contact. Around the 105-kilometer-long Seine River stretches a hollow karst landscape where rainwater quickly disappears underground, leaving dry, rocky slopes used for traditional grazing. A medieval cemetery stands directly beside the rim of the sinkhole, with rows of old stone grave markers facing the dark water below. The Chocolate Hills in the Philippines may look like peaceful grassy hills, but they are actually more than 1,776 hollow limestone cones that can collapse without warning. This entire landscape was once an ancient ocean floor, where the remains of countless marine creatures and coral reefs accumulated before tectonic forces pushed them above sea level and rain slowly shaped them into hills rising nearly 390 feet. Almost 1,800 hills are crowded into an area of only about 19 square miles, forming a maze of steep slopes where anyone who loses direction must repeatedly climb and descend until exhaustion sets in. Only sharp kogon grass survives on the dry limestone surface, and during the dry season, the region has almost no water, little shade, and very few natural food sources. There have been moments when someone stepped across the grass and the ground suddenly opened into a dark sinkhole, leaving nothing behind except the silence of the hills where their final footprints once were. Sam Phan Bok in Thailand is the largest field of river-carved potholes in Southeast Asia, where the Mekong River has drilled thousands of holes into a wide sandstone plain. For 6 months during the flood season, the entire rock plateau disappears beneath more than 33 feet of muddy water before reappearing in the dry season as a barren surface filled with deep pits. More than 3,000 holes formed when pebbles trapped in powerful river whirlpools spun for millions of years, slowly grinding into the sandstone. When the water retreats, the exposed plain stretching across many square miles absorbs intense solar heat, which can quickly exhaust anyone walking across the bare rock. This section of the Mekong is also a narrow choke point where massive upstream water flow is forced through a tight channel, increasing the impact and erosion power of the river. Many pits shaped like skulls or cartoon figures are geological marks formed where several swirling currents met and slowly wore down the rock over extremely long periods of time. The Great Blue Hole off the coast of Belize is often called an open grave of the Caribbean, a massive ocean sinkhole where experienced divers have died because of gas poisoning and deep water hallucinations. At a depth of 295 feet, exists a thick toxic gas cloud acting like a gateway to hell, completely separating the clear blue water above from the oxygen-deprived dead water zone below. The massive pressure here is so brutal that it causes humans to suffer nitrogen narcosis and manually remove breathing gear to laugh unconsciously right before being swallowed forever by the black hole. To touch the bottom for just a few short minutes, divers must gamble their lives hovering for hours at decompression stops so their bodies are not destroyed by ocean pressure during ascent. Because the bottom of the hole has no oxygen, the bodies of the unfortunate ones are not eaten by fish or decomposed, but lie intact in their wetsuits amidst toxic mud for decades. The Danakil Desert is the lethal wasteland holding the title of the hottest, constantly inhabited place on the planet. In Ethiopia's Danakil Depression, the village of Hamadella stands as a staggering testament to human endurance, where families have clung to traditional huts for generations. Perched directly atop a massive salt flat, with temperatures frequently soaring above 122 degrees Fahrenheit, this is one of the hottest and most extreme inhabited places on Earth. The sweltering heat is so intense that tires can explode from over-expanded air, while electronics often shut down or have plastic parts melt after just 10 minutes of direct sun exposure. Just beyond the doorsteps lies a surreal landscape featuring bubbling neon green acid pools and geysers that relentlessly shoot scalding water into the sky. Despite neighboring volcanoes spewing toxic gases, resilient miners continue to carve white salt blocks to form camel caravans, transporting white gold across this literal living hell. Cano Cristales is a wild river buried deep within the primal jungles of Colombia and holds the undisputed title of the most vibrant river in the entire world. Beyond any visual illusion, this river truly erupts with 5 violent colors, including bright red, yellow, green, blue, and black, right beneath its deceptive crystal-clear waters. However, the existence of this beauty is so brutally fragile that even a single drop of chemicals from a human is enough to instantly suffocate and wither the entire magnificent colored carpet. Despite being filled with millions of cubic feet of water so pure it is frightening, this is a lethal dead zone for fish because the riverbed is nothing but barren rock without a single grain of mud for survival. This explosion of color only occurs in a brief moment, because if the rain is too heavy, the fierce currents will sweep everything away, or if the sun exceeds 100 degrees, the entire ecosystem will be completely incinerated. Most terrifyingly, this beauty lies deep within a forbidden zone, torn apart by decades of civil war, where hidden minefields still wait to swallow any reckless soul who dares to trespass. Tumpak Sewu in Indonesia is not a peaceful attraction, but is often called one of the most dangerous curtain waterfalls in the Indonesian. At the bottom lies a narrow, semicircular basin locked in by steep sedimentary walls rising close to 300 feet, where the thunder of falling water can completely drown out warning sounds from upstream. Mount Semeru is among the most persistently active volcanoes on Earth, with eruptions recorded in 74 of the past 80 years, and since 2014, it has released ash almost daily, with plumes rising as high as about 7.5 miles. The valleys below the waterfall system, including the basin around Tumpak Sewu, repeatedly receive volcanic mudflows whenever heavy rain combines with eruptive activity from the mountain. In 1981, a major mudflow destroyed 26 villages and killed at least 251 people. And in December 2021, another collapse of volcanic material swept away thousands of homes. Despite the constant danger, many workers still collect volcanic sand in the dry riverbeds nearby, where a sudden roar from Semeru may leave them only 10 to 15 minutes to escape the incoming mud flow. Don't let the beauty of Monument Valley fool you, because it is actually one of the most brutal survival traps in America, with red rock towers as tall as 100-story buildings. In the heart of a modern nation, thousands of indigenous people still live without power or running water while facing daily dust storms, carrying deadly radioactive uranium dust. You will be tortured by insane weather, where 104-degree Fahrenheit daytime heat suddenly drops to 0 degrees at night, leaving your body completely exhausted. The scariest part is how heavy rains turn the ground into a slippery mud that swallows tires before hardening like solid concrete to trap you forever in the middle of nowhere. They choose to risk their lives and give up modern comforts to protect their faith and roots on this bone-dry but proud stretch of earth. Milford Sound is recognized as the 8th wonder of the world and holds the record as one of the wettest places on the planet, with massive amounts of rainfall throughout the year. The brutality of nature here is shown through vertical cliffs rising over 3,000 feet, straight from the sea into the sky, creating a suffocating limestone labyrinth. When storms sweep through, thousands of temporary waterfalls crash down from the peaks with terrifying pressure, enough to sweep away all vegetation and trigger violent landslides. The landscape is so absurd that the surface water mixes freezing glacial freshwater with salty seawater, creating a permanent dark zone where deep-sea creatures must rise to the surface to survive. The harshness also comes from aggressive sandflies ready to attack any living being, and gale-force winds that can literally lift the ocean surface into the air. Milford Sound is not just a grand landscape, but a completely isolated natural fortress where humans become tiny and helpless against the power of nature. Iguazu Falls is a massive fracture that split the Paraná volcanic plateau, where hundreds of waterfalls combine into a system whose water flow can surge up to 30 times after only a few days of heavy rain. In this environment, the great dusky swift has chosen a suicidal survival strategy by diving through water walls with enough pressure to crush human ribs to nest in eternal darkness and 100% humidity. Maintenance workers and rangers stubbornly cling to these slippery cliff edges because it remains the only source of income, allowing them to survive within this treacherous and remote borderland. The brutality extends to biological traps like the sandbox tree, armed with poisonous spikes and exploding seed pods that fire like shrapnel, capable of piercing thick flesh in an instant. The most horrifying reality lies within the devil's throat, where hydraulic pressure pins and churns a victim's body against the bottom for days until the violent currents tear them apart before washing the remains miles downstream. Trolltunga, also known as the Troll Tongue, is a suspended rock platform hanging above one of the highest unprotected cliff drops in northern Europe. The ledge projects from a vertical cliff about 2,300 feet above the valley, where the distance between a perfect photograph and a fatal fall is often just a single slip on smooth rock. Although it appears permanent, the formation continues to erode under thousands of years of ice pressure and extreme weather, which slowly makes the surface more unstable. Danger also comes from sudden wind gusts rising from the deep lake below, which can push a standing adult off balance within seconds. Dense whiteout storms can erase visibility in minutes, turning the entire cliff edge into a disorienting maze where every direction leads toward the drop. More than 40 rescue operations occur here each year, and when weather conditions worsen, helicopters often cannot fly, forcing rescue teams to hike for hours through cold mountain terrain to reach injured visitors. The Faroe Islands are home to the village of Gassadalur, which holds the title of one of the most isolated and treacherous settlements on the international stage. Perched precariously on cliffs rising over 1,300 feet above sea level, this tiny hamlet houses fewer than 12 families facing the constant fury of North Atlantic storms. The most defining feature of this land is a massive waterfall, plunging directly from the backyards of houses into the roaring ocean, creating a fragile boundary between a cozy home and the void of the abyss. Before a mountain tunnel was opened in 2004, residents had to gamble their lives by hiking over towering peaks in dense fog or traveling by boat through violent waters that frequently sank vessels. Even the local sheep have adapted to these extreme conditions by casually grazing at the very edge of the precipice while powerful gale-force winds constantly threaten to sweep away all traces of life. Gassadalur serves as the ultimate embodiment of resilient survival as humans cling to the edge of the world to confront the most violent forces of nature. Known as the masterpiece of the gods, Geirangafjord is actually a brutal, natural trap hidden between vertical cliffs, rising like the ramparts of hell. This place nurses the Åkneset monster, where a death crack silently splits the mountain every day, waiting to dump millions of tons of rock to trigger a massive wall of water as tall as a 30-story building. The brutality is felt through a desperate race for survival, where the entire village will be erased under pitch-black water before the sirens even stop. The most terrifying story lies with the past farmers who had to tether their children with ropes to keep them from being blown into the abyss right in their own yards. In winter, this landmark turns into an isolated icy prison as avalanches bury every road and transform canyons into giant wind tunnels. The Anatolian Devil-Eye, once a volcanic lake system 39 feet deep, has now evaporated completely in just 2 decades to reveal a cruel mineral graveyard. Under the scorching heat, the lakebed turns into a thick puddle of blood-red mud as extreme bacteria multiply and emit the foul stench of chemical decomposition. This cracked surface instantly transforms into a storm, generating machine-blowing, highly corrosive alkaline salt dust that devastates the lungs of all living things. Even more terrifying, the hollow land surrounding it hides over 2,500 giant sinkholes as deep as a 15-story building, ready to tear the ground open without any warning tremors. Despite the impending swallowing disaster, farmers still gamble their lives, drilling wells hundreds of feet deep through the decaying limestone bedrock to scavenge water for planting. The price of that stubbornness is sudden, horrific tragedies when both humans and tractors weighing tons are abruptly swallowed by a 131-foot-deep black hole, burying the bodies forever in the deep abyss. The town of Civita di Bagnoregio in Italy holds the title of the world's most famous dying city as it perches atop a volcanic rock plateau that is literally crumbling away. Located precariously in a valley at an elevation of over 1,300 feet, the fragile, tough stone structure is vanishing into thin air after every winter storm or harsh earthquake. Ancient walls and historic houses frequently collapse into the abyss because the foundations erode at a rate of nearly 3 inches every year. Today, fewer than 12 residents remain in a state of eternal farewell, as the living space beneath their feet continues to shrink significantly. The only way to access this lonely world is a footbridge stretching over 1,000 feet across a deep canyon, acting as a fragile lifeline connecting the past to the void. Civita di Bagnoregio serves as an extreme symbol of human presence, as people refuse to abandon the final fragments of their disappearing home. Imagine standing before Dettifoss, a massive wall of water stretching wide, where the ground beneath your feet trembles violently under the raw force of nature. Hidden deep within Iceland's most dramatic canyon, this waterfall does not carry a clear blue color, but instead holds a murky gray tone formed by ancient glacial sediment ground over thousands of years. The sheer power of the flow at Dettifoss creates towering clouds of white mist that rise high and can be seen from several miles away. This immense pressure continuously erodes the solid rock walls, causing the entire waterfall to slowly retreat upstream at an average rate of about 1.5 feet per year. Within this raw landscape, sunlight often pierces through the dense mist to form bright, double rainbows stretching across the vast terrain. On the eastern side of the falls, the complete absence of safety barriers allows the most daring individuals to stand right at the edge and face the violent beauty and endless roar of the earth. It may sound unbelievable, but Paricutin in Mexico is the only volcano on Earth whose entire life cycle was witnessed by modern humans from its sudden birth to its quiet end. Everything began as a small crack, releasing sulfur gas in a farmer's cornfield. Yet within the first 24 hours, the eruption threw out ash and rock and grew to nearly 164 feet before rising into a volcano about 1,100 feet tall after a single year. Lava from the crater spread outward and buried the town of San Juan Parangaricutiro beneath layers of molten rock across more than about 10 square miles of land. When the lava finally cooled, the entire town lay hidden under sharp black basalt that can cut through thick boots like broken glass. In the middle of this frozen lava desert, the bell tower of the San Juan Capistrano Church still rises alone, marking the exact place where a living town once stood. During the years of eruption, lava hotter than 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit killed no one. But 3 people in the region died when volcanic lightning formed inside ash clouds and struck the ground. Raja Ampat is an impossible death zone, holding the record for extreme isolation and the most violent natural forces on the planet. To reach this sea at the very edge of the world, you must endure a grueling journey spanning several days and nights on small boats, crossing desolate waters without a single soul in sight. The force of nature here is incredibly violent, with currents in the narrow gaps between limestone islands capable of sweeping a professional diver away for miles in just a few brief seconds. You will be overwhelmed by thousands of limestone cliffs standing at a 90-degree angle and sharp as razors, always ready to shred the hull of any boat daring enough to approach. Upon entering the deep center, all advanced devices become useless bricks as cell service and GPS signals are completely neutralized among the towering ridges. This place remains a mysterious blind spot for humanity, with hundreds of islands and underwater caves that have never appeared on a map or felt the touch of a human footprint. Known as the Stone Fortress of the Pacific, the Diamond Head system holds the record as one of the most perfect and famous volcanic tuff cones on the planet. With a massive basin structure completely lacking shade trees, it turns into a sweltering oven that blocks all cooling trade winds from the ocean. The brutality of the terrain is shown through rugged trails filled with loose gravel and choking dust, ready to cause injury to anyone without professional gear. To reach the summit, at over 560 feet, you must conquer steep staircases that drain your energy under the scorching sun, causing hundreds of people to collapse every year. The harshness is proven by the heavy rescue frequency, with an average of more than 10 emergency calls every month, and helicopters constantly circling to pull heat stroke victims out of the crater. This is truly a brutal fitness test, where the annual casualty numbers are living proof of the danger hidden behind the paradise beauty. Studligil is not a natural masterpiece, but an exposed basalt spike trap holding the record as Iceland's densest and most brutal hexagonal column formation. Before 2007, the monstrous Yukla River carried and dumped 130 tons of mud and rock into the ocean every hour, ready to crush any creature falling into its violent silt flow. The deceptively beautiful turquoise water is actually a lethal trap, maintaining temperatures between 33 and 39 degrees Fahrenheit, causing the respiratory system to seize and muscles to freeze in less than 3 minutes. Despite facing isolation and deadly peril, Yökuldalur Valley farmers have desperately clung to this land for centuries because the pastures feeding their sheep are the only assets keeping them alive through winter. This persistence has been paid for, with chilling tragedies where the river's roar drowned out the screams of those who slipped, causing them to vanish forever into the deep canyon depths. Now that the flow is choked, the canyon stands like a magnificent skeleton, yet it still waits to claim the lives of anyone careless enough to step on its grease-slick moss. Known as the city swallowed by rock, Petra holds the record as the most insane architectural achievement of the ancient world. Construction here was a life-or-death gamble, with no chance for error, as workers had to hang suspended at deadly heights to chisel the mountain face from top to bottom with absolute precision. To enter this magnificent city, you must pass through a natural deep crevice with vertical walls rising hundreds of feet high, creating the sensation that the giant mountain is about to collapse and crush any intruder. In the middle of a scorching desert frying pan, the ancients captured the water monster by hollowing out the mountains to create a massive underground drainage system to tame destructive flash floods and turn deadly water into luxurious gardens. Stepping out of the dark canyon, you will feel as small as an ant before massive facades as tall as a 10-story building carved straight into the mountainside with pure madness. The harshness of these natural barriers performed its protective duties so perfectly that desert dust completely swallowed and erased this megacity from human memory for centuries. Choosing to stay at Bangyok Falls is a crazy risk as they build houses right on a giant abyss dividing two countries. This place is like a natural meat grinder, continuously pouring millions of cubic feet of water from over 98 feet high, ready to swallow everything when upstream dams release floods without warning. Under their heels is not solid ground, but deep, empty caves with countless rocks as sharp as razors and wartime mines still sleeping under rotting forest leaves. Despite the bone-chilling wet mist that can quickly rot a tiny scratch, they still risk their lives clinging to the cliffs to plant corn to keep the land left by their ancestors. Anyone who takes a wrong step and falls into that roaring current will immediately be swept across the border where no rescue team is allowed to cross over and bring them back. Few places in Europe force human settlement inside a natural geological trap like Kotor Bay, where deep water is locked between steep limestone cliffs of the Balkan Mountains. Trapped between the sea and barren mountains, early inhabitants survived by fishing, dangerous maritime trade, and at times piracy to avoid starvation. The towns cling to the base of cliffs along an active fault line that produced a magnitude 6.9 earthquake in 1979, sending huge limestone blocks crashing into the settlements. The only road connecting the bay to the outside world twists through 25 tight hairpin turns, carved directly into the cliff, where vehicles must pass beside a steep drop without guardrails. In the quiet water of the bay stands a small island covered with dark cypress trees, where a monastery and cemetery hold victims of epidemics, earthquakes, and violent deaths from the region's past. Far from a static lake surface, Plitvice is actually a living limestone labyrinth with the fastest terrain consumption and regeneration speed on the planet. Beneath the eerily crystal-clear water lies a surreal graveyard where intense minerals instantly petrify and forever imprison any organism that sinks to the deep bottom. The entire lake surface acts like a monster's eye, constantly shifting colors from ash gray to brilliant turquoise in just hours due to billions of swirling bacteria. During brutal winters, massive waterfalls suddenly freeze into thousands of razor-sharp ice swords weighing tons, hanging overhead like a death trap. Violent underground currents can turn into water bombs that tear through cliffs and level century-old natural dams after just one night of melting ice. Halong Bay is actually a deadly battlefield with over 1,900 giant limestone blades forming the most complex submerged sea maze in the world. Millions of tons of rock hang precariously over eroded alcoves, constantly threatening to fracture and crush any living soul daring to enter the dark cave crevices. The brutality also comes from air currents squeezed through narrow canyons, creating immense pressure strong enough to lift and tear apart any floating rafts. In desperate struggle, humans here must face the tidal trap that rises 13 feet to seal cave entrances and drain the oxygen of those trapped within just a few short hours. Surrounded by nothing but salt water, finding a single drop of fresh water is harder and more precious than gold, forcing people to give up every basic need just to stay alive. During long storms, families have sometimes been forced to keep the body of a deceased relative on their raft for days until the sea becomes calm enough to reach the shore. Itaim-Bazingo Canyon is a basalt fracture about 2,360 feet deep, where a single slip can turn a human body into shattered remains on the canyon floor. In less than 3 minutes, a weather event called Virasao can pull dense ocean fog into the canyon and erase visibility from many miles to zero, turning the cliff edge into a hidden, deadly trap. At the bottom flows the Rio do Boi, or River of the Cattle, where for centuries animals blinded by fog or frightened by predators have plunged from the cliffs, their bodies smashed against rock, and the river below turning into a drifting graveyard stained with blood. Despite the danger, ranchers and explorers still return here, drawn by grazing land and by the harsh landscape carved across the plateau. When accidents occur, violent winds often prevent helicopters from landing, and rescue teams may spend nearly an entire day descending on foot, only to find faint traces of the victims at the canyon floor. Verdun Gorge is often described as the Great Scar of Europe, where the continent appears split open by a limestone canyon nearly 2,300 feet deep. with sheer vertical walls. To imagine the scale, you would need to stack more than 2 Eiffel Towers to reach from the bottom of the Verdun River to the rim above. In several narrow sections, the river does not simply flow along the surface, but disappears into underground channels and limestone caves, forming hidden sinkholes and water passages. High above the cliffs, griffon vultures with wingspans close to 10 feet glide on warm air rising from the canyon depths. Modern hydroelectric dams regulate the river, yet sudden water releases can quickly raise the level inside narrow passages, turning calm sections into violent torrents. Because of the extreme terrain, the canyon floor remained almost untouched by humans until 1905, when the first expedition finally crossed it after several wooden boats were smashed against the rock walls. Marina Bay Sands is an expensive engineering gamble where a massive architectural complex must stand on the soft, reclaimed land of Marina Bay in Singapore. Because this ground is not solid rock, the structure, weighing hundreds of thousands of tons, sits on more than 500 hydraulic jacks placed deep underground to keep the 3 towers balanced as the soil slowly settles. This constant movement also affects the infinity pool nearly 650 feet above ground, which holds about 396,000 gallons of water and is divided into 3 sections, so it can adapt to the different motion of the towers in strong winds. The pool's sections are connected by special expansion joints, allowing the structure to move about 10 inches while keeping the concrete and water system stable. Outside the building, large glass surfaces absorb intense equatorial sunlight, so powerful central cooling systems must run continuously to maintain comfortable temperatures inside.